In an SCHD, this is my dividend portfolio, just strictly dividend stocks in here. Currently have 485 shares of SCHD that I've been buying since about December of 2024. Currently sitting about 15 grand in equity, and obviously SCHD has had a monster year this year. It's ran about 16% just this year alone. So, yeah. Sorry.
What's up, everybody? It's Nick Trades here, bringing you guys a new video. Today we're talking about this ETF that could retire you in the next 20 years if you play your cards right, if you be consistent. You can really create something really good here. So today I'm going to be talking about SCHD, okay? If you haven't heard of SCHD, it is Charles Schwab Dividend ETF, okay? Why I choose SCHD is because it's a very managed portfolio, certain criteria that are required from every stock just to be in this ETF. And you want to have assets and not be cash heavy, okay? If you have a lot of cash, a lot of money coming in, and you're not investing it, as words in the great Bitcoin Playboy have said
burning
before,
in your pocket. It's withering away. Nothing's happening to it. The more money you keep in the bank, the more inflation eats at it. And you're too scared to buy things like this. Now look, you don't gotta buy silver, bro. You can go buy equities, bonds, you can go buy stocks, the S&P 500, you can go buy real estate, land. Bro, I don't care what you buy, but become cash poor to prevent yourself from losing money.
So what makes SCHD the top dividend ETF for me is just looking at some of the top holdings. You have Merck, you have Amgen, you have Cisco, AbbVie, Coca-Cola, Bristol Myers, Pepsi, Chevron, LMT, or Lockheed Martin, Verizon. You know, and it's a very balanced, and it's not heavy to one sector. It's not a tech heavy index. It's not a pharmaceutical heavy index. You can see it's a very balanced ETF, okay? So, and these are household names. If you haven't heard at least one of these names in this list, and you know, you've probably been living under a rock, you know, for your entire life. But if you have heard of Chevron, have heard of Pepsi, have heard of Coca-Cola, these are things you can easily understand and understand why it's in this ETF. It's not rocket science. These companies have been around for 50 plus years, some of them even longer. Have that market cap of 500 million at least, so that means they're a heavily traded asset. People hold these stocks in their regular portfolios, and these companies aren't going anywhere. They have survived cycle after cycle, bear market after bear market, inflation, recession, all that has been battled the test of time. So this is why SCHD is heavily managed. And if one of these companies were to stop their dividend, they would quickly be taken out of that ETF. Keep in mind, there is 100 different stocks in SCHD, but these are the top 10, okay? SCHD is a cash flow machine. So essentially, it pays about a 3.3, 3.5% yield, which essentially means, and if you don't understand about yields, for every $10,000 you have invested, you're getting back about 3.3%. So you're getting about $330 a year back on every 10,000 invested. Okay, that may not sound like, oh my God, I put 10 grand of my hard-earned money into an ETF and I'm only getting back $300. I could just stick it into the S&P and I'll even probably make more returns that way. But this is not what we're not. This is not a growth ETF. This is simply a passive income ETF. If I was looking for growth, I'd look elsewhere. But there's more risks that come along with investing in growth stocks. This is a passive income generating stock. Now, imagine you have those $330 a year that you get, but you're dripping it. You're reinvesting it into that stock. You're going to be getting so much more shares than you realize throughout time, further growing and compounding your dividends. So I personally, on top of the dividends I receive, I personally put $400 every single market week. And I believe, I forget what that comes out to. It comes out to about 20 grand extra every single week. And I started off doing $200. You can start off doing $100, whatever you're comfortable with. But you want to slowly be buying every single week SCHD because you're going to buy and develop a good average cost. You're buying on red days. You're buying on green days. You're buying on days that, you know, it's not moving too much. So you're going to develop a really nice average cost over time while slowly investing. So does SCHD actually perform? And I'll tell you what, I held this and I've been buying it since early or late 2024. And for the entirety of 2024, my money sat sideways. It didn't go down. It didn't go up either, but it sat sideways. But I was earning dividends, so keep that in mind. But since inception, SCHD returns on an average 13% over time. Its 10-year performance, it has, been very similar to the S&P on growth. Actually, even though it's a little bit more stagnant. But as you can see here, early in 2025, you can buy shares at $26, $25, and now we're over $30 a share. Because right now it actually tends to perform really, really well when the market is in downturns. Lately, in the beginning of 2026, we had a lot of volatility, a lot of tariff concerns, recession concerns, all sorts of jumbo that you hear day to day. And S&P and NASDAQ have actually been having a rough beginning of 2026, while SCHD, while the rest of the market is getting hammered, this thing is going up and up and up because investors are fleeing from growth stocks and actually buying passive dividend ETFs. So there's a time and place for it, right? But even up here, I'm comfortable with you guys buying it and still seeing a long-term great return. And if it goes lower, we buy more, and I'm hoping it goes lower so I can accumulate even cheaper shares. Right now, shares are $31, and I firmly believe that in a few years, shares will be $60 a share, $70 a share. So not only you're getting that growth, almost doubling your money on your shares, while also earning a passive income, that's a big W for me. SCHD up 15% since January 1st, while the S&P is down 1.18%. Nothing crazy on the S&P, not the biggest drop in the world, but it is outperforming this year. I remember all year last year when I was buying it, people were like, why are you buying this? Why are you buying this? It's not moving. It's not moving. I wasn't in it for it to be moving. I was in it for a dividend. And now that I'm having nice growth on the equity as well, I'm up over $2,000 on the shares. That's a nice extra bonus. But I am fairly aware that $2,000 may, once dividends roll out and things slow back down and tech gets back up, that's going to slow down again. But I'm okay with that. So keep that in mind. So how I personally invest in SCHD, obviously it's a long-term investment. I have that drip on because doing the calculations of what your portfolio will look like 20 years from now without reinvesting those dividends is night and day. You want to have that drip on if you're doing this strategy. Consistent dollar cost averaging, like I said, when I say I buy $400 a week, it's throughout the week. I'm buying it on red dips. I'm buying it, when it's breaking out a new level. I'm just slowly accumulating. I'm focused on accumulating it and not trading it, It's not a trading ETF. This is an investment. And I check my performance monthly, where it was last month versus this month. This is not something I'm looking at every single day, but it is something I am holding, okay? But let me show you exactly how it looks live from my account. What's up, everybody? So I just want to show you how I approach the SCHD Dividend ETF. I currently am aggressively buying $400 every week, but I'll just show you a live login on my account. Looking at SCHD, this is my dividend portfolio, just strictly dividend stocks in here. Currently have 485 shares of SCHD that I've been buying since about December of 2024. Currently sitting about $15,000 in equity, and obviously SCHD has had a monster year this year. It's ran about 16% just this year alone. So now I'm going to show you exactly what the dividends actually look like. So looking at, as you can see here, I buy anything I can to get to that 200 to 400 every single market week. You can see these are just buys. Even if I'm buying $28 worth, $100 worth, whatever, $22, I still buy it, just to make sure I get to that 200 to 400 bucks a week. We'll come back in and we'll show you the dividends. So my first dividend when I had 12 measly shares was $3. Nothing insane. $3 for 12 shares. And then it slowly grew to $19, $39, $86, and we recently, in December of last year, had our biggest dividend of 400 shares, paying us over $111 and buying us 4 more shares because we have that drip on, that dividend reinvestment program.
So anytime you get that dividend payment, it automatically gets re-put into the stock, buying you more shares, in theory increasing your dividends, compounding your dividends, making your money work for you. And in the long run, if you have passive income like that, that is how you have financial freedom, right? So in 20 years from now, this 15 grand portfolio, I keep on putting those $400 every week, keep on dripping or dividend reinvesting, and you will have a portfolio of like $500 to $1 million that's paying you annually, covering your bills. You know, now what more do you want? That's dividend freedom right there.
So I did plug in SCHD here in a dividend ETF calculator just to kind of give you guys an idea of what's the outcome of doing all this. And then starting off as an initial investment, just to show you similar share size of what I have, I put in initial investment of 15 grand, share price currently $31, quarterly dividend. They have an average growth rate of 10 to 15% on the dividend growth annually, and an extra investment of $200 a week, okay, over 20 years. So you calculate that, and you can see here, you're starting off with a 15 grand portfolio with 475 shares. Annually, that year, you'll have gotten $700 in dividends, and your portfolio should be around 27 grand by the end of the year if all goes well, right? Continuing, 5 years in, portfolio is 75 grand. You've still been throwing in $200 a week. You're now getting over 10 grand a year in dividend income. And you're actually finishing the year with over 2,000 shares. Very, very nice. And, that's pretty good. And you're ending that year with a portfolio of 95 grand. That's pretty amazing after 5 years, starting off with 15 grand. And now let's up it, to the aggressive style that I'm doing, $400 a share, a week. And you'll see how quickly by year 3, you're already at over 100 grand. So nice thing is, when you're trading with us and you make good trades on the side, options trading or whatever type of trading you do on the side, that $400 a week doesn't have to come from your paycheck. It doesn't have to come from your savings or whatever. Amazing part is when I trade really well, I put in more than $400 a week. I take those profits that I make from my day trading and I throw it into SCHD. And that is when you really see the compounding, because you're putting in even more than what you promised, So 20 years from now, if I keep putting these aggressive minimum $400 a week, my portfolio could be close to $2 million. And I'll be getting paid, annually 150 grand. If you can't live off 150 grand a year for doing nothing, just sitting here and holding this, I don't know what to tell you, because I can. And I know plenty of people who will live well off 150 grand a year in 20 years from now. Even though obviously you have to kind of factor the inflation of cash throughout the time and stuff like that, but you're well off than most. So hopefully you found something really interesting in this video. Maybe I'll do another SCHD video coming up, and we'll update, how many shares I have, how the dividends are looking. My biggest dividend so far as of February 2026 has been $111. But soon those dividends will be over $1,000. Soon those dividends will be over $3,000, and those are buying me another 40, 50, 60 shares, whatever it may be. And then things get real exciting after that. So if you enjoyed this video, drop a like. Let me know another stock or ETF you want me to review, or if you want me to go over some day trading strategies, whatever it may be. Thank you for spending your time listening to this video. Nick out. Enjoy your weekend. Happy trading, everybody.